Hi, newlyweds. It's Brittany here, and
I am Kev on stage.
you are not.
I am Michael Moore.
And this is another episode of The Fruitful Wife. All right, so you see, I dragged this one into a podcast reluctantly, but he loves me enough to get on this week's podcast with me, and we have a great episode for you. So it's hot outside. We had to literally position ourselves in the sun so you guys could see us clearly. So we're gonna be about our Father's business today, okay? Amen. So today's topic is things I wish I knew before I got married. And I think a lot of times we go into marriage with one perspective, especially if we didn't have, great premarital counseling, especially if, men and women of God didn't really sit with us and share with us how serious marriage can be, and even the pros and cons of marriage. A lot of times you just hear the pros, but nobody really sits down and breaks down the cons because they really don't want to scare you away from the idea. But today we're gonna get into it. We're gonna talk about it. All right, so let's get into it. Anything you want to say about it?
Let's do it.
Okay, so you're gonna have to talk loud, because last time we couldn't hear you.
I need a microphone.
You need a microphone? We actually have a microphone, but currently we don't use it. We'll get back into that. All right, so first thing on my list is marriage wasn't created to produce happiness, but it was created to produce holiness. This has been a huge one for me. What about you, Mike?
Yeah. I agree. There are lots of stuff that we found out when we first got married. I think, it was actually my first one too. So I put something similar. I said, marriage, don't get married if you're looking for love. And that's it, because it's not going to last.
Yeah.
Marriage, like Brittany said, is more about refining who you are.
Yeah.
And marriage is that vehicle that does that. So if you love them so much and you can't stand to be without them, don't get married. That's not going to be enough, because one day you will want to be without them. So.
Is that how you felt about me at one point in time?
One point in time.
Keep it real.
One point.
We want to be 100% honest. So I know for me that I had a very Disney princess perspective on marriage. I looked at Mike as my knight in shining armor, that he was going to take me away into, this fairy tale castle, and we were going to live happily ever after until death do us part. And the only thing I believe that was true about all of that is the till death do us part.
Right. We haven't found a castle yet.
Yep, we don't have a castle. And a lot of times what we don't realize is that you have two imperfect people coming together with different views, different ways that they were raised. Mike and I were raised completely different. He comes from a military family. I come from a single mother, and the way that we view things are very different. Even the way that, we wanted to raise our children still to this day differs. And when you have different of opinions, different perspectives, y'all are gonna bump heads. Y'all are gonna collide. Y'all are gonna get angry. Y'all are gonna fight. Is that true?
Very true.
And I think if all of that happens and you think that marriage is about happiness, you'll say, oh, well, maybe we shouldn't be together because, oh, he doesn't make me happy. She doesn't make me happy. Oh, maybe this wasn't meant to be. Oh, maybe I fell out of love. You know, you have to realize that God uses marriage. As Christians, God uses marriage to produce something within us for his glory. Yeah.
Yeah. It was, who said that? Someone said that, I think it was Pastor Rachel, about unreconcilable differences. Like, that's not a reason to get divorced.
Sometimes you want it to be a reason.
Well, and I think this list may not even work because you didn't say like 3 of mine already in the first one.
That's okay. We'll just go into detail.
So, no, I was thinking about, what was I thinking about? Marriages are two very distinct people learning to live a life together. Which means, and they still have very different opinions. They still see the world very differently. But learning to live with each other and learning to make those differences work for each other is a lot of what the task of marriage is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm trying to think of a good example for us.
Like what we went through. Let me see.
I'll just give mine because when we were dating, you know, I had this grand scheme that we were going to be, you know, the next what's his name, Bill Gates and Melissa, is that her name? Whatever his wife's name is.
Bill and Melissa Gates.
Whatever her name is. Whatever the next power couple.
Mr. and Mrs. Gates.
Right, the Gates family. You know, I was gonna have a Fortune 500 company, and she was gonna have her own Fortune 500 company, and we're gonna just
never
be this
see
power
each
couple.
other.
And then when we got together, that was not the case. Brie didn't even want to have a job. She's like, I'm gonna be a stay-at-home mom. Like, that wasn't in my plans. That's not what I had decided.
He wasn't feeling that at all.
That is not what I had planned for us.
Yeah.
So, and still, I mean, we still have differences of opinion. Brittany hates corporate America, and I still wanted to be an executive in some, you know, Fortune 500 companies. It's what it is. So yeah, this whole learning to be separate people, but in a unified marriage.
Oh, that's good.
And even to like to this day, I think I was even thinking about upstairs, like, even though you get married, that doesn't mean that your oneness is over. You still have to be you. You still have to have the dreams that you want to pursue.
Yeah.
You know, there's things that you have to accomplish for yourself, even though you are joined to a person.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think it's even good because when you show that example of having your own dreams and desires and working with that with your spouse, that is an example for your children.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't really know what my end goal or end point was on that, but yeah, it's this
all
whole
good.
Yeah, learning to be not separate, to be an individual in a joint marriage, in a unified relationship.
Yes.
I think is extremely important.
Yeah.
And that's something you really don't think about when you're single and wanting to marry somebody, that you still have a life and they still have a life.
Yes.
And it's not your life, it's their life.
Yes.
So
that's good. That's good. So what's yours? Give me one of yours on your list.
I think I already said them all. So, selfishness will kill a marriage. Learn to share.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna have to share a lot.
A lot.
Not everything. Like I said, you are still a unique being, but learning to share and learning to get over is not about you all the time.
Yes. Mike used to get extremely upset when I wanted him to share his things with me, and vice versa, because I'm super spoiled.
Yeah.
And I came from, at least, you know, he was the middle child, you know, so he had some type of sharing going on. But I was the only child. So I was like, what do you mean share? Share what?
Yeah.
Get your own.
And it's not just stuff. I mean, there are times when you have to share your thoughts when you don't want
Yeah.
to, and share your dreams and share your struggles.
Share your life.
Oh man, yeah, because there was a lot of stuff. I really probably am like going a little too deep, but no,
No, go
there
ahead.
were a
Be
lot of
honest.
things I did not share with Brittany before we got married. I'm very private, and I didn't even share with her a lot of stuff that I think if I would have in the beginning, it would have made a lot of the struggles that we went through in the beginning a lot easier.
I agree.
So yeah, it's almost a requirement that you have to know how to share with
Yeah.
the person that you're going to be with. And like I said, it's not just stuff. It's your thoughts. It's your
Fears.
fears. It's your dreams. It's I mean just yeah, a lot.
Yeah, that's really good. You know, and just really being comfortable with sharing and realizing, oh gosh, that it's not all about you. You know, selfishness, you know, like you said, will kill a marriage. That is so true. Even, you know, with the podcast that I did a couple of weeks ago about serving your spouse. A lot of times when you take a me type of approach to your marriage, what happens is you're really saying, well, I don't consider you. Your thoughts don't matter. You know, what you think isn't important to me. As long as I get what I want out of the deal, who cares what else happens? You know, I just, and even, you know, as far as sharing responsibility,
Right. Right.
you know, sharing responsibility, sharing the load, you know, not one person being responsible for everything. You know, one thing that I love about Mike is he does laundry. Do you know how much I love that? I love the fact that he does laundry. Like, Mike really shares the load of the house. He doesn't just, you know, there were times I feel like, you know, you thought you going to work and coming home was good enough. But I can say now that, you know, even whether it's cleaning the kitchen or doing laundry or being an active participant in the children's school, like, he has really stepped up and shared the load. And when you share even in that way, that says, I consider you, I see you, we're not in this alone. You know, you're not by yourself. We are a team.
Right.
And that blesses me.
Well, I think that came about when I got the fact that you can't compare your marriage to somebody else's. You can't look at somebody else and say, oh well, their husband doesn't do this, so I don't have to do it, or their wife does this, so my wife should do this. There's no set example, I'll say it that way,
Yeah.
of how a marriage should look.
Yes. There are a lot of good examples, but your marriage, just like you, is very unique.
Right.
I think we should add that to the list. Do not compare yourself to other marriages, other couples.
Right.
Yeah, you know, I think there have been times where I've looked at, you know, because Mike, you know, is a very introvert person and he's very reserved. And, you know, he's the strong, silent type, I'll say. And, you know, there have been times where I wanted him to get crunk and nuck if you buck on my behalf. And, you know, because I've seen other men do it. And, you know, comparing him to them, I really feel like, you know, hurt our marriage. And vice versa. I remember, you know, you saying, oh, well, such and such wife does this and such wife does that. And, you know, comparing each other instead of embracing what's unique about that spouse and loving what that spouse brings to the table.
Right.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, don't compare, because a lot of times you may see those strengths in a couple, but what you don't see are the weaknesses. What you don't see is behind closed doors. You may see a power couple, both of them, making great money in their own individual fields, but what you don't see is that they don't spend any quality time. What you don't see is that they haven't had sex in a year. What you don't see is that they argue and have a power struggle about finances. You don't see that. All you see is the brand new cars and the really great trips, and it seems like their kids are able to be in every sport and every extracurricular activity. But you really don't know what's behind closed doors, and really don't ask for anything that you don't know the entirety or the depth of.
Don't subscribe to the Facebook or Instagram timeline.
Yes.
It's not real.
We're all representatives on social media. Even myself. I post great family pictures. I post Mike and I do the podcast, and I try and be transparent on the podcast, but I don't post, oh, Mike and I just got into an argument. So yeah, don't subscribe to the
gram,
the marriage goals on social media. Don't compare. Okay, what's next?
You're next.
I'm next. I put love is a choice. Definitely.
That's good.
If I went by because people say, oh, love is a feeling. I fell in love. They always make it seem like, love just kidnapped them and, forced them into this relationship. But love is a choice. Love is a decision that you have to make each and every day. That I choose to be concerned about and care about this person, no matter the circumstance or environment that we are in. If I went by how I felt, if you went by how you felt, we would have been divorced a long time ago. Love is not a feeling. Love is not an emotion. Love is a commandment. Love is a choice. And love is action. Excuse me, y'all. Love is an action.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I agree. There have been times where I've been so angry, so upset, so sad, so disappointed in the choices that were made by Mike. I was like, ain't no way. Honey, if love was a feeling, then I done something wrong.
Yeah.
What about you?
No, I agree, because there are times when we would have fought like for 6 hours straight, and we'd be like, okay, what do you want to eat? Like, what? I still get dinner tonight? Oh, so nice.
Yes. No matter how you feel, love is not based on whatever emotion that you have at the time. But when you take those vows, when you make those vows to God and with your spouse, you're saying, I'll love you no matter what my emotion is, right? So, all right. That's one of my big lessons. Love is a choice.
Right.
What's your next?
You go ahead.
Okay, so next on my list is I don't have to change who I am to be loved.
That's good.
I think for me personally, I felt like I needed that my good deeds would get me loved. That if I said the right things, if I did the right things, if I always looked a certain way, that would help Mike to always love me. And, if there was something about myself that he didn't like, and I don't mean sin or, flaws or anything like that, but I mean just a part of my personality that he didn't like. You know, I felt like I would have to change that about myself, or he would stop loving me, or he wouldn't want me anymore, or, he would leave me or find somebody better. Um, so, one thing is that I had to find confidence in who God said that I was, not in who Mike said that I was. And that me knowing that God loves me enabled me to love myself, which enabled Mike to love me. Because it's hard to love an insecure person, and it's hard to love someone, who doesn't really know who they are. Um, so I had to realize, okay, I have to love me, and I can't shift and change my personality and almost be fake and inauthentic to kind of fit into whatever mold um, my spouse wanted me to be in. Do I love him? Yes. Do I want him to love me? As far as sin, as far as flaws, should I work on those? Absolutely. But I'm talking about who God created me. I'm a naturally bubbly, I'm a naturally outgoing person. And I'm very smart. I would consider myself smart. So me dumbing myself down, or me trying to make it seem like I'm an introvert because he is one, or me making it seem like, you know I don't have a bubbly personality when I know that I do, just so he could say, oh, she's like me, or we're alike. None of that benefits a marriage. If God brought you two together, if God brought you two together, then there is something about each one of your individual personalities that brings something to the table and brings success to that marriage. And you don't have to change who God created you to be loved by your spouse. If they really are who God has brought to you, then you can be yourself and know that they will love that person. What do you think?
No, it was funny. I was thinking about while you were saying that. It's like some of the qualities that first attracted you to that person are some of the same qualities that will drive you crazy 5 years later.
Tell them the truth. Tell them the truth.
Yeah. So there's not going to be a perfect person for you because we're all changing. Things we liked when we were in our 20s, we don't like in our 30s. Things we liked when we were, you know, 19, and now we're 30 something. Like, I ain't feeling that no more.
For example, when Mike met me, I used to be weaved out. Always. I either had some type of hair always down my back, sewn in, glued in, ponytail, some kind of extensions. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Occasionally, I still do that. But as when I got older, I started enjoying what naturally grows out of my scalp. And I started loving me. And I didn't have to have, a different hair color. I didn't have to have, hair that I couldn't grow myself down my back. I began to really love Brittany and love me and not feel like I have to pow, foundation on my face and do my makeup every day, because I used to do that. With Mike, if I wouldn't have my weave in, I'd put a hat on because I didn't want him to see my real hair. You remember that? I used to have that beanie, that red beanie, that I would put on my head when I didn't have my wig or my weave on. Like, really insecure. But, as I found out who God says that I am, I began to love me. And I'm like, Mike, I understand. I'll try and keep it neat, but I'm going to keep it neat and natural unless I feel like getting a weave. Because who I was when we met at 21 is not who I am now at 31.
This is true.
I'm not. And you got to be okay with that. your spouse isn't going to be the exact same. If your spouse ain't growing, then something's wrong. If your spouse is exactly the same, nothing has matured or grown about them in the 10 years that we've been together, then I would say that's a red flag more than a good thing.
Right. Right.
Some things about your personality will stay the same because it's your personality, but there are some things that are just going to, what I was into, I'm not into. When I met Mike, I was in the club. I go out, go hang out with my friends, go to the club, go party. Ain't no way you catching me in a club, sports bar, or anything in between. That's just not me anymore. What about you? What's different about you now, babe?
What's different about me? No, I think it goes back to the. I won't say I was selfish. I was no. I was quite bougie, picky, elitist, I guess. I don't even know why I didn't have that much money, but it was just something about me. Like, I'll never forget the time that Brittany introduced me to Dollar Tree.
He had never been to Dollar Tree, y'all.
And I was, what, 30 something when that happened? It's like, oh, all this stuff is here is $1?
Yes.
It's the same stuff I go to Publix and Kroger's and pay $5
Honey,
for? Yeah.
you are more down to earth now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, shoot, I'll go buy some clothes at Walmart in a second.
Yes. Excuse me, y'all. Yes, that's the truth. That is the truth. So, yeah, that to me is true. You don't have to change who you are to be loved. And in that change, your spouse should love you, and you should still love your spouse through the changes that they go through. Who they are when you first met they're not going to be that even 5 years from now, because life happens. Life teaches us, life matures us. Things that we did back then, really don't benefit us anymore. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, your turn.
Okay, so this is my last one, so you gotta fill in the rest.
Okay.
So, I think for me, one of the things that you should know, or at least be trying to discover before you even think about getting married, is what your purpose is for your life. If you don't know why you're put on this earth, then your marriage is kind of just gonna go nowhere. It's not.
That's right.
It's gonna. How do I put this? It's easier to go through the rough times when you know what the purpose is for your marriage.
Yes.
Again, that goes to what Brittany was saying, that love will not keep a marriage. You have to have a purpose for that marriage. You have to have a purpose for your own self, and a vision for your marriage and your family and everything else. So, if you haven't discovered those yet, you probably are not ready to step into a marriage.
Amen.
So,
that's good.
it's my five nickels, 5 pennies, whatever it is.
Nickels, 5 pennies.
Some form
That's
of
your
money.
2 cents.
That's my 2 cents.
Okay, so next on my list is I can only control me.
Yeah.
We've learned that, haven't we?
You can try and control them, and they may allow it for a little while.
Oh.
But eventually, the real them's gonna come out.
That's true. Where I may have thought in the past where Mike should be in his spiritual walk, the type of husband I believe that he should be, the type of father that I thought that he should be. Oh, you don't do this. Oh, you may not do it like this or like this person. Again, comparing. You start to impose, your ideology upon them and not giving them the freedom and the space to be who they are and who God created them to be. That's kind of like the first one. You cannot control a person. Whether they do something that's out of order, whether they're living in sin, whether, they're not saved, or whatever the case may be. You will drive yourself crazy trying to get them to do what you think that they should do. You are not God.
Right.
Only God can move upon the heart of a person. Only God can transform a person. Only God can change the heart of a person. You cannot. And you will change you before you change them. You cannot control a person. And if you think before you get married or in the beginning of your marriage, oh, well, I really don't like this about them, but I can change them. Oh, well, this little part of them will work on that. No, you ain't working on nothing. What you can do is take it to God in prayer. What you can do is respectfully present your request to that person. What you can do is, in a considerate way, share your heart with the person. Speak life into them. But what you cannot do is make them change into the person you want them to be. And if that person isn't who you want them to be before you get married, I would suggest waiting until they are for you to take those vows. Right. Because when you get married to a person, basically what you are saying is, whether you change or not, if you stay this exact person forever until the day you take your last breath, can I be married to you till death do us part? If nothing ever changes about you, nothing, can I still do till death do us part? And if your answer is no, then I would reconsider. What do you say? What is your
No, I was just thinking of what was one thing you were looking at me like, we'll fix that later after we get married.
Let me see. You know what? I think for Mike, I never realized while we were dating that he wasn't very affectionate. He's not touchy-feely. Oh, let me rub on you. That's not him. And I think when we were dating, I wasn't either.
I think it was different because the times we saw each other were limited.
Yes.
So there was like moments of that.
Yes.
But it wasn't like...
Because we were really missing each other.
Right.
And so there was a lot of passion with seeing each other and spending time with each other.
Right.
But yeah, when we got married, I was like, Mike, you don't give me kissy faces. You don't, not as often as I would like. And, I just knew that with the kids, he was going to come and cuddle them and kiss on them. And, just be all, I love you, my son, my daughters. He wasn't that. And that really bothered me. And, with the, what do they call them? The 5 love languages.
I was just thinking about that. Learn your love languages.
But here's the thing. Physical touch isn't my top love language. It isn't. It's really words of affirmation and acts of service. But when a person doesn't do one of them at all, next thing you know, the need for that one steadily increases until it almost seems like it's your top one. And so I would say, well, Mike, what about this? Mike, why don't you, Mike, come give me a hug. Come give me a kiss. Doop, 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 doop. Really annoying with it, right? And Mike was like, I'm not feeling it. And that hurt. I felt rejected. I felt unwanted. I felt unloved. I felt unattractive. And even though that was probably the story that I was telling myself, I still had those real feelings until, I had to give it to God, and I stopped being so aggressive with it, because that aggression makes him withdraw even more. Like, oh God, I can't, I'm not able. So when I was able to find that satisfaction in God and not my husband, then I feel like then we were able to balance out. He started giving it more to me because I wasn't begging for it.
Yeah, and then you have to look at, like, again, how we said at the beginning, like, we are two completely different people.
Yeah.
With two completely different, I'm completely dying in the shadows.
You getting in the shadow.
Two completely different histories, family past. Like, my family, we ain't fictional people.
Right.
Like,
right.
Yeah, the hugs will come like on holidays.
Hugs on holidays.
That may be it. But yeah, so you have to, I think those are things you have to consider when you meet that person that you can want to consider being with. Like, they don't have the exact same, I don't know what the best word is.
They don't have the same upbringing.
It's not even upbringing, it's just
they don't have the same emotional priorities.
Maybe that's it.
What do you just made that up.
Yeah. If you have a better word, leave it in the comments.
Yes, leave it in the comments if you have a better word for that. Yeah, so my turn. Something about me that you really wanted me to change, because I know there was a few.
That really wanted you to change?
Yes.
I had a very skewed marriage view of what a wife was when I met you. Like I think like we talked about earlier, like the women that I knew of in my adult life that were married were like, they worked full time, and then they had the kids and all kinds of programs, and then they had this huge house that kept clean, and I'm pretty sure that they were doggone exhausted all the time with all the stuff they had to do. But I thought that was the standard, so I was like, oh well, that's what Brittany's gonna do when we get married. She ain't getting none of that. Well, I won't say none of that. She was like, nope, that ain't my life.
Right.
But what I am good at, I'm completely gone.
You're gonna have to.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know what happened.
But anyway, so yeah. But what she is good at, which is being a loving mother and instilling values in our children and growing independent children, which our kids are very independent. I don't know if you've never met them. I'm just gonna tell you, they are very.
We'll just talk in the dark.
Yeah, our kids are very
independent,
and they can stand on their own 2 feet.
Self-sufficient.
Yes, which I think is something that Brittany has put a lot into them to get them to that point.
I think Mike likes that. Kind of.
Yeah,
Be honest.
We got one hit in preteens now, so I'm trying to reel her back.
Before she get too grown.
She's too independent.
Yeah, that's real. That is real.
But no, yeah, there's my own expectations I really put on Brittany at the beginning of our marriage, which I had to give up.
You did.
I really had to let it go.
No, guys, he wanted me to be Superwoman when we first got married. He wanted me, and I just... You know what? I think when we first got married, I was dealing with a lot mentally, too, which also kind of stunted all that I was capable of doing. But yeah, he had a very high standard, and it was almost depressing knowing that I couldn't reach that standard for him, because I wanted to please him. I wanted to make him happy. I wanted him to be, proud of his wife. I wanted to be that wife that he felt like he could, brag about and talk about and showcase. But I wasn't, not that you feel that way now. And I don't want people to think that, I'm putting him down or anything. But that was stressful. Which went back to, I don't have to change who I am to be loved. I really had to find that out during those years. Because, I was willing to put myself in a lot of very uncomfortable situations to make sure he was happy. And then a lot of times I did, and you still weren't happy. I think you realized that maybe that wasn't what you wanted. Because he wanted me to be this career woman and, have my own thing. And then I started doing that. And then I was rarely home. And then he had to step in a lot more with the children. And he was like, okay, well, can I get my wife back? So, I think that we're beginning to find a balance with all of that.
Yeah, and you're still a career woman. Just went your own path at it.
Yes.
So.
Because I can't do corporate America, y'all. I mean, no, not knocking nobody who does it. He loves it. And he thrives in it. But as for me, I cannot. I cannot. Okay, so, yeah. Is there anything else that you feel like they need to know?
Oh, they need to know. Pray a lot. Okay. Funny story. Well, it's not even a funny story. It's just like I didn't know, really. I don't think I prayed nearly a tenth of the amount of time that I pray now before I got married. And it's not even for bad stuff. It's just like, that we keep the vision that we have for our family, that, God continues to shape me into the person I need to be.
Yeah.
That God would shape Brittany into the person that he wants her to be. It's everything we basically said this whole time.
Yeah.
Is covered in prayer. So learn to pray together, because there's nothing more powerful than unity in prayer.
Yes.
So,
Come on, Pastor Mike.
Learn that quick. Again, nothing is more powerful than God at work in your marriage. So, I think that's it for me. Yeah.
I think for me, if I was to add one more thing, marriage is not going to fix your problems.
No.
If anything, if there's anything about yourself that you feel like needs to change, and you believe that having a spouse will help you, or having that accountability partner, or having somebody to help you change, it's not going to fix your problems, it's going to magnify them. Your spouse cannot fix you. And if you're thinking, oh, well, I have a problem with women, I have a problem with women, so I need to get a wife, because if I get a wife, I'm going to stop, womanizing. No, you basically just made yourself an adulterer. If you have a problem with pornography and you're like, well, I just need to get married so I can do all of that stuff with my spouse, when maybe that'll help my problem with pornography. No. Oh, I need a spouse to help me with my money problems. I need a spouse, if I get married, then, we can help on these bills and pay off debt. Nope. If you have spending problems single, you're going to have spending problems married.
That's real.
God has to transform the heart. You have to figure out the root. Maybe you grew up lacking. Maybe, there were multiple times in your life where you had massive loss, and you buying things or mismanaging your money with your spending, makes you feel secure. Having things makes you feel secure. Whatever the issue may be, or maybe you just were taught wrong and you're stuck in your ways on finances. You have to be transformed from the inside out, and only God can do that. Your spouse can't change you. Your spouse can't fix you. Only God can do that.
Mm-hmm.
There have been many times where I'm like, Mike, I want to go on a diet. Mike, I want to lose weight. Mike, go on a 30-day challenge with me. Mike, come walk with me. Mike, let's eat right together. Let's do keto. Let's go walk. Yeah, Mike can say, Brittany, let's go, let's do. He can motivate me all I want, but if I don't have the will to transform, he can talk till he's blue in the face. I'm still going to be obese. Your spouse cannot fix you. Your spouse cannot change you. Only God can do that. So we just want to give you guys a couple of things that we realized, as we were married, that maybe you can, those of you who are newlyweds or engaged can recognize before you get married. Oh, another thing. I know I said that was the last one. I got another one. Uh, Family isn't always wise counsel in your marriage. Sometimes the intimate parts of your marriage should not be shared with your family, your parents, your siblings, all of that. Let me tell you, because you invite them in, if you invite them in and they are not giving you godly, sound, wise counsel, it can do more harm than it can good. There have been many times where, I've just had to just not share things with my mother that I was going through with Michael, because I needed to just go to God with this and not anybody else, because I didn't want opinions. I didn't want people, not saying that she would, because she's actually never have, but, be like, well, you need to leave. You just need to go. You ain't got to take that from nobody. Sometimes family don't always have your best interest when it comes to your marriage. And there have been times where we have shared things with our family, and then they throw it in the spouse's face, or they bring it up, or they think that it's their job to fix it, or all of that stuff. Kick folk out the intimate parts of your marriage. If you are going through things, I'm not saying don't talk to anybody, because there are times where you need to talk to somebody, but you need to talk to a godly, unbiased person.
Who is married?
Come on with that.
Not single.
Oh, let me tell you something. The intimate details of my marriage, I do not talk to single. Not that I don't think that they're wise. Not that I don't think that they wouldn't have anything good to say. But I don't want nobody telling me nothing that they ain't been through and been victorious in.
Right. We want you to be certified.
Come on. Come on.
Yeah.
Not divorced. Like, been through and have been victorious in. So yeah. So I think that was good, babe. What you think?
Thank God for the shade.
Yes. Even though y'all can't see us, it feels so much better though, because we was baking. All right. So before we go, we just want to pray with you guys, and we just want your marriages to be strengthened. We want you to find joy and peace in your marriage, and we want you guys to grow closer and closer in unity as you both grow closer to God. Yeah, so you gonna pray, Mike?
Okay. So God, we thank you for these people that have joined in this conversation with us. God, we thank you that they will have blessed marriages, Father God,
yes,
that they will seek you first, God, because you have all the answers that no one else has, God. You have the wisdom that we need, God. You have the love and patience and grace that we need to make it through a successful marriage, God. So we ask you just to bless everyone that's watching, God, with these gifts that you will give us freely, God, if we just seek after you.
Yes, Lord.
I just ask you that you would just bless them, God. Give them you. It's you that we need, God, to do this. So even more than anything, even more than having a spouse, God, even more than having someone that loves us on this earth, God, we need you, God. So we ask for you to come and teach every one of us, Father God, And again, just teach us how to be the person that you would have us to be for our marriages, Father God, that you would give us a
Yes.
vision and a purpose for the marriage, Father God, that you would help us to show what needs to come out of ourselves, God,
Yes, Lord.
and just prune that out of us, Father God. And I know you will, God. So I thank you again for how you're blessing each and every one of us, God, that will have long-lasting marriages that are purpose-driven and just full of you, Father God. And that, in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. All right, guys. We hope that you are blessed. We love you all. Don't forget to like, comment, share. If you're if you're watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button and ring that bell so you can get notified when we come out, when I come out with the new podcast. And yeah, until next time, PS, enjoy your marriage.